are restroom facilities at the far end behind the cottage, behind the house. And in the event it looks like the weather's going to hold, this morning I wasn't 100% sure, in the event that we have to shelter in place, there is sheltering in place potentially in the visitor center, or if you have a vehicle, that would be the place to go. Otherwise, so today you will experience one of Douglass's most famous speeches. The year was 1852, July 5th. Firehouse is 1 block away. Hopefully that'll only happen once. So the date is July 5th, not the 4th. And Douglass is speaking to the Rochester's Ladies Anti-Slavery Society. The speech wound up being a scathing commentary on the irony of the freedoms that are celebrated the day before, the 4th of July. And when Douglass gives the speech, it is finished with a round of tremendous applause, and it's something that will be published, and even to this day still perhaps is an eloquent commentary on the society that we live in. So, but with that, I won't bore us anymore. I give you what to the slave is the 4th of July.
Friends and fellow citizens, he who could address this audience without a quailing sensation has stronger nerves than I have. I do not ever remember to have appeared before anyone more shrinkingly, nor with greater distrust of my abilities than I do this day. The fact of the matter is, fellow citizens, the distance between the platform and the slave plantation from which I escaped is considerable. And the difficulties in getting from the latter to the former are by no means slight. That I am here today, to me, is a matter of astonishment as well as of gratitude. With a little experience and less learning, I've managed to place my thoughts hastily and imperfectly together, and trusting to your patient and generous indulgence, I shall proceed to lay them before you. This, for the purpose of this celebration, is the 4th of July. It is the birthday of your national independence. It is to you what the Passover was to the emancipated people of God. It carries your minds back to that day and to the act of your great deliverance. May the patriot not hope that high lessons of wisdom and of justice and of truth shall yet guide her in her destiny. Were America older, the patriot's heart might be sadder, the reformer's brow heavier. America's future might be shrouded in gloom, and the hope of her prophets go out in sorrow. There is consolation in the thought that America is young. Fellow citizens, pardon me and allow me to ask, why am I called here to speak to you today? What have I or anyone I represent to do with your national independence? Are the great principles of political freedom and natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us? Am I therefore to confess the benefits and express devout gratitude resulting from the blessings of your independence to us. Would to God, for both your sakes and ours, an affirmative answer would truthfully be returned to the question. Then would my labor be light and my burden easy and delightful. For who would not lend his voice to the hallelujahs of a nation's jubilee when the chains of turpitude have been torn from its limbs? But such is not the state of the case. I say with a sad sense of disparity between us, I am not included within the pale of your glorious anniversary. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. The rich inheritance of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness bequeathed by your forefathers is shared by you, not me. The sunlight that brought life and health to you brought stripes and death to me. This 4th of July is yours, not ours. You may rejoice. We must mourn, and to drag a man in fetters into the grand illuminated temple of liberty and call upon him to join you in joyous anthems is inhuman mockery and sacrilegious irony. Do you intend to mock me, fellow citizens, by calling me here to speak to you today? Sorry. By the rivers of Babylon, yea, we sat down and wept. Yea, we wept when we remembered Zion. We hung our harps on the willows in the midst thereof. For those who led us away captive required of us a song, and they who wasted us required of us mirth, saying, sing us one of the Lord's songs. But how shall we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? Oh, Jerusalem, if I do not remember thee, may my right hand forget her cunning, and if I forget thee, may my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. Fellow citizens, beyond your national and tumultuous joy, I hear the mournful wailing of millions whose chains, grievous yesterday, are today rendered more intolerable by the jubilee shouts that reach them. If I do forget, if I do not remember the bleeding children of sorrow, may my right hand forget her cunning, and may my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. To forget them, to pass lightly over their wrongs, and chime in with the popular theme is treason. Most scandalous and shocking. It would make me a reproach before God and the world. My subject then, fellow citizens, is American slavery. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt, land till old Pharaoh, let my people go. I did not, as a slave child, understand the deep meaning of those songs. I myself was within the circle, so that I neither saw nor heard what those without might see and hear. They told a tale of woe that was then altogether beyond my feeble comprehension. They were tones loud and long and deep. They breathed the prayer and complaint of souls boiling over with the bitterest anguish. Every tone was a testimony against slavery and a prayer to God for deliverance from chains. To those songs, I give credit to my understanding of the dehumanizing character of slavery. I cannot get rid of those songs. They follow me even to this day to deepen my hatred of slavery and quicken my sympathy for my brethren in bonds. If anyone wishes to understand the dehumanizing character of slavery, let him go down to Colonel Lloyd's plantation at high noon, and let him place himself in the deep pine woods, and there, in silence, let him analyze the sounds that shall fill the chamber of his soul. If he's not thus impressed, it will only be because there is no flesh in his obdurate heart. in the American slave system, there's no marrying to establish family. There's no education to establish skill and learning. And the light of the gospel shut out from the dark mind of the bondman, and him forbidden by law to learn to read. If a mother shall teach her daughter to read, the state of Virginia proclaims she shall be hanged by the neck. In the state of Texas, if a father shall teach his son the knowledge of letters, he shall be killed by the discretion of the court. 3 million people shut out from the light of knowledge. 3 million people shut into the darkness of ignorance. 3 million people that are bound by the chains of evil that can only result from such a state of things. But I am bound by the prayers and the tears and the supplications of 3 million of my countrymen, and will bargain with no man connected to the American slave system whatsoever. I shall expose slavery. To expose it is to kill it. I am to slavery what the light of the sun is to the root of a tree. When the roots are exposed, it must die under it. The only thing the slave master wants from me is silence. The only thing he wants from me is darkness on the subject. But what I want is for the American slave system to be surrounded by howling anti-slavery walls of fire, so the slave master can read his own condemnation and his system come tumbling down in flaming letters of light. Fellow citizens, the simple fact of the matter is that 76 years ago, the people of this country were British subjects. Your fathers deemed the English government as the home government and England as the fatherland. The home government did impose upon its colonial children such burdens and restraints as it deemed wise, right, and proper. But your fathers, who had not chimed in with the popular idea of the day of the infallibility of government, began to differ with such burdens and restraints. They went so far in their excitement as to pronounce the home government as unruly, unjust, and oppressive, and altogether such as ought not to be quietly submitted to. And I needs must say, fellow citizens, that my opinion of those measures fully accords with that of your fathers. To say now that America was right and England wrong is exceedingly easy, but there was a time when to pronounce against England and in favor of the cause of the colonies tried men's souls. Those who did so were called makers of mischief, agitators, rebels, dangerous men. But your fathers were statesmen, patriots, and heroes. And for the good they did and the cause they stood for, I will stand with you to honor them in their memory. Feeling themselves unjustly treated, they earnestly sought redress. They petitioned, they demonstrated. They did so in a decorous, loyal, and respectful manner. But oppression makes a wise man mad. Your fathers were wise men, and if they did not go mad, they grew restive in this treatment. They felt themselves the victims of grievous wrongs, wholly incurable in their colonial capacity. Just here, the idea of total separation of the colonies from the crown was born, resolved that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British crown, and that all political connection between the colonies and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be dissolved. Fred, your fathers made good that resolution. They loved their country better than they loved their own private interests. They staked their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor all in the cause of liberty. They seized upon eternal principles and set a glorious example in their defense. Mark them. Their solid manhood stands out all the more as we contrast it with these degenerate times. Shall we take a look at the 4th of July and all of its popular characteristics? from the slave point of view. What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, it is a day that reveals to him, more than any other day of the year, the gross conduct and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham. You know what is a swine drover? I'll show you a man drover. They inhabit all of our southern states. They perambulate the country and crowd the highways of the nation with droves of human stock, armed with pistol, pip, and bowie knife, driving a company of 100 men, women, and children from the Potomac to the slave market in New Orleans. These wretched souls are to be sold singly or in lots to suit purchasers. They are food for the cotton field and for the deadly sugar mill. Mark the sad procession as it moves on, and the savage wretch who drives them. See the old man with locks thin and gray. See the young woman whose shoulders are bare to the scorching sun. Her briny tears falls on the brow of the baby in her arms. See too the young girl of 13 weeping as she thinks of a mother from whom she's been torn. The crowd moves tardily. Heat and sorrow nearly removes their strength. Suddenly, you hear a quick snap, like the discharge of a rifle. The fetters clank, the chains rattle. Suddenly, your ears are saluted with a scream that seems to have torn its way into the center of your soul. The crack you heard was the sound of the whip. The scream was the mother with the babe in her arms. Her speed had faltered under the weight of the chains and the child, but the gash in her shoulder tells her to move on. Follow the procession to New Orleans. Attend an auction there. See men examined like horses. See the frames of women rudely and brutally exposed to the shocking gaze of American slave buyers. Tell me, citizens, where under the sun have you witnessed a spectacle more fiendish and shocking yet? This is but a glimpse of the American slave system as it exists in the ruling part of the United States. But it is just at this time that I would hear someone in my audience say to me, it is just here that you and your fellow abolitionists failed to make a favorable impression upon the public mind. If you would argue more and denounce less, if you would persuade more and rebuke less, your cause might be much more likely to succeed. But I submit, where all is plain, there's nothing to be argued. What in the anti-slavery parade would you have me argue? Would you have me argue that the slave is a man? The point is conceded already. Nobody doubts it. Slaveholders themselves acknowledge it in enactment of the laws of their government. They acknowledge it by punishing the slaves. There are 72 crimes in the state of Virginia which, if committed by a black man, may subject him to the punishment of death, while only 2 of those same crimes, if committed by a white man, will subject him to like punishment. What is this but the acknowledgement that the slave, no matter how ignorant he may be, is a moral, intellectual, and responsible being? Southern statute books are filled with enactments forbidding under severe fines and penalties the teaching of the slave to read and to write. When you can point to any such laws as it relates to the beast of the field, then I will consent to argue the manhood of the slave. American, your Republican politics, as well as your Republican religion, are flagrantly inconsistent. You boast of your love of liberty, your high civilization, your pure Christianity, yet the whole political power of the nation conspires to hold in bondage 3 million of its countrymen. You invite fugitives from abroad. You honor them with banquets. You toast them. You salute them. You protect them. But of your own fugitives at home, you advertise, you hunt, you shoot, you arrest, you kill. You mourn fallen hungry. You make her woes the themes of your poets, your statesmen, and your orators, until your gallant sons are ready to fly to arms to vindicate vengeance against her oppressors. But of the 10,000 wrongs committed against the American slave, you enforce the strictest silence and would deem him an enemy of the nation that would make the subject public discourse. You say all men are of one blood under God, and that all men everywhere ought to love one another, yet you notoriously hate all those whose skins are not colored like your own. You proclaim to the world, and to the world proclaim, these truths we hold to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and have been endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and that of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Yes, you hold in bondage a 7th part of the inhabitants of your country. Fellow citizens, the existence of slavery in this country brands your republicanism a sham, your humanity a base pretense, your Christianity a lie. It destroys your moral power abroad. It corrupts your politicians at home. It saps the very foundation of religion. It makes your name a hissing and a byword to a mocking